I was making my video on the difference between the diners of the 20th Century Limited, and I remember that I've been wanting to make this video for a while now. Now that these have been out for a couple of years, there's plenty of comparisons of how these different B6s are to different variants and runs, and you can see all the sound videos of those, so I'm not going to show that. But what I do have is a Key Imports B6sb, and then behind it obviously the Broadway Limited that was released here about 2 years ago. So if you're like me, I bought one of these before the Broadway Limited was announced, because I'd always wanted a B6, and you could only really get this in a Key Imports model. So no cold load, no nothing, right? It's just your regular brass model, and it was about, I think, $500. You still get them for about that now, but they're a little bit easier to find because the Broadway Limited is out. So I'll move this aside. I just wanted to get these two together to show side by side what the differences are between the brass and, of course, the Broadway Limited run. And that's just going to be aside from the little paint details. What you're going to end up seeing is smaller things like the Broadway Limited has the headlight numbers on it and the builder's plate, whereas the Key Imports does have a builder's plate, and it is generally legible, not as legible as the Broadway Limited models, but there's no numbers on the headlight, at least on this one. And then there's no gems in the marker lights. Now you can definitely add those later, which is not a huge deal, but the piping overall seems to be about the same. Now, try and get this on the film. That side step there, right here, compared to the Broadway Limiteds, is a bit better detailed, I think. This is a bit more on the bulkier side. Most of the piping coming down the boiler is about the same. Even down to your air tank, except for the Broadway Limited has a smaller step as an add-on. So let's turn these around. There's a head-on view. It's hard to get the camera to focus, but there is wood detail on these front steps on both models. There it is. Now what you do get on Broadway Limited though is a screw right there. It's out in the open, and you get the opposite on the Key Imports for the coupler sticking through. On the other side, only real difference is going to be the colors of the linkages and the outside of the wheels being metal on the Key Imports and more of a stained metal on the Broadway Limited. Which probably makes it a little bit easier to get some weathering on there. And then for your roof detail, the hatch does move. Hatch does move. Spin these around. You can get the cab detail. The cab detail in there. Nothing colors, just all the same Brunswick green or DGLA green. Trying to get side of that. I don't see any other colors in the Broadway Limited either. Now for the tender on the Broadway Limited, you do get a cold load. And then your Key Imports being brass, you don't get a cold load. You get to do that on your own. Marker lights are the same as the front. There's gems on the Broadway Limited, not on the Key Imports. And overall, the back and the tender are roughly the same. Don't see any other details that are any different. So you do get some nice rivet details on the Broadway Limited model. I think it's a little bit better than the key imports. Just seeing it in person versus on the camera at least. But it's very, very minor. So overall, big difference is going to be price point, being that, like I said, these key imports are about $500, and then these are just over $400, I think, in the Paragon 4. So that's why these are not really selling anymore. But I do have both. This may eventually get a decoder in it if I want to fight it in the small tender, but to have it already in a tender of this size, it does make noise. It does everything you're going to want it to. Way better to get the Broadway Limited. If you do get one of these, I have noticed that these boiler plates do pop off pretty easy. Just like that. So if you do rattle them, you got to center it up. Okay, so I've been wanting to make this video for a while, just to get these two side by side. I hadn't seen one yet. So hopefully this helps somebody in purchasing either one of these engines.